With the start of a new academic year just around the corner, thousands of students are heading into London for their first experience of student life. But as everyone knows, living in London is not cheap. So unless you're very lucky, you're probably going to need some sort of job to sustain that London student lifestyle. In this video, I'm going to be going over my past experience with getting a job as a student in London. I'll also give you some ideas for different jobs that you can try and get now you're moving to London, as well as including some general tips about things such as where to look and also important things to consider when finding a job. Before we get into that though, I just want to say I have made a lot of videos about living in London at this point, so if you are interested in anything to do with London lifestyle, please do check out the other videos on my channel. I'll include a playlist link in the description to all my videos about living in London, and if you do enjoy them, please do consider clicking that subscribe button. Let's get into this. So just a quick background about myself. I moved to London in 2015 to study digital media technologies at the University of Greenwich. This was a 4-year course which included a sandwich year where I completed a year's internship at the Walt Disney Company as a production and operations intern. I've since graduated and worked a variety of jobs, including a design internship at a sustainable asset management company. I've also worked as a content and creative specialist at GoDaddy for roughly 18 months, and I've recently started a job as a digital designer at a digital startup studio in London. I am also now studying a part-time UX design masters at Falmouth University online, which I do whilst working my full-time job. This video is going to be more focused on the jobs that I did while studying my undergraduate degree, just because I think that's what more people want to know about, as that's the situation most people watching this video are going to be in. So the first job that I did whilst as a student was at the famous Tesco's. I worked on the checkout, scanning products and talking to customers. It was probably my least favourite job of all the ones that I did while studying. However, I did do it through a summer opposed to while doing my studies, which meant I was doing almost full-time hours, which was a great way of earning money going into the next year of university. The next job that I did was actually at the Students' Union of my university. This is almost certainly one of the better jobs that I did, because working at the Students' Union of your university means they do understand what you're going through as a student, meaning they can be very flexible when you have a lot of coursework. They're very happy to work your shifts around when your lectures are or any other commitments you might have. The Students' Union I worked at also paid pretty well for a student job, and the work itself wasn't very challenging. I basically worked on the reception in one of the buildings at the university. If anyone had a question or needed anything, I was there to answer it. So I was basically sitting there talking the whole day, which I didn't really have any problem with. So whilst I was working that job at the Students' Union, I actually had another job which I did throughout my final year and actually quite a bit after I left university, and that was at a hospitality agency. I won't give the specific name of it, however, if you Google hospitality agencies in London, there are a lot of them. Basically what the work involves is you get trained up, the training is very quick and simple, but you get trained up in just kind of basic customer service and kind of hospitality etiquette. Then you'll be given kind of access to a portal where there's a long list of all the available jobs they have. This is all temp work, so it'll just be specific events. So the kind of events that you can imagine working at is like private business events, big sports games, race courses, music events, working on bars, working as a waiter, working as kind of like VIP box assistants. It can really include anything, and that's probably one of the things that makes that role most interesting, is that you do work at a variety of places. You work with a variety of people, meaning it is great to meet new people through that work. And because a lot of the work you do there is at kind of high-end events, there is the opportunity to get tipped a lot of money, which did happen a few times to me, and it was a great bonus of the job. Specifically, I found working at race courses the best place for getting tips, and also at boxes at places like Twickenham and the O2. And the final job that I had was actually just working in a cafe. It was a local one to my university. I made coffee, I served customers, brought them their food, cleared up, basically all the normal tasks you can imagine as a waiter slash barista at a coffee shop. What I liked about this work was that it was very reliable. You got to know your colleagues very well. As I was at kind of a small independent coffee shop, you also got to know your customers. And there was plenty of opportunity for overtime and earning extra money. There was obviously downsides to it. The biggest one for me was just cleaning up at the end of the shift. I wouldn't mind the normal shift throughout the day, however spending an hour or two at the end of the day cleaning up was just not something I enjoyed, but it was part of the job and I needed the money as a student. So in terms of job ideas and recommendations, I would definitely hammer home what I said earlier about Students' Union or just working for your university in general. You can either work for the SU or directly for the university. There's usually tons of opportunities for this kind of work, whether it's giving campus tours or answering phone calls from students or prospective students or helping around the SU. There's also roles such as residential assistants, which is basically you're responsible for parts of the halls of residence. So if anyone has any issues or people complain about noise or whatever, you have to be the person to go and tell them to shut up. But that does also quite often include free accommodation or at least discounted accommodation on top of the salary. So that is one that's definitely worth looking at. I would also definitely recommend what I said earlier about hospitality agencies. What's really great about that is you get to pick and choose the kind of work that you do. This means you can be really flexible about any other commitments you might have, whether that is coursework, assignments, exam revision, your lectures, or even fun stuff like going out or going on holiday. You can pick and choose the shifts you work. As well as being flexible, this also means that if you have a free week and nothing else to do and you want to earn a lot of money, you can just pack out your week with a shift every day if they're available and earn some good money in a very short amount of time. Normal hospitality is also good, however, it often isn't as flexible as agencies or working for a university. I'd definitely say working for kind of small independent businesses is more enjoyable than chains. Sure, at a chain there's going to be things like HR, so if you have an issue, they can help you with that. However, I do think independent businesses such as local pubs or cafes or restaurants are often more friendly environments and you'll feel more looked after. Another great job to do while studying is to be a brand ambassador. So there's tons of opportunities, whether that's for Nando's, Domino's, uni days, anyone really, clubs around London. You can become an ambassador for these brands, and based on your referrals for that brand, you get paid money. So if you're a very sociable person, if you have a good social media following, or if you're just generally good at making friends or talking to people, then this would be a very easy job for you, as you just have to recommend these things. But generally, from what I've heard from other people, it is a decent job. And if you're doing it based on referrals and you're a sociable person, you are going to make more money. And the final idea I have for getting a job isn't actually one that I've personally done before or know too many people that have done before. However, it is extremely popular and lots of people do seem to enjoy it, and that is gig working. So working for companies like Deliveroo, Uber Eats, Just Eat, Stuart, Amazon even. If you've got a bicycle or I don't know, like a moped or anything to get around, if you can get onto one of these companies' platforms, get registered and approved, then you have extremely flexible and extremely consistent work. Then you have the opportunity to work whenever you'd like, which does make it one of the most flexible kinds of work. Sure, there are plenty of downsides for this kind of work. One is that you don't really have a guaranteed salary of any kind. However, that usually is the case with most student jobs, unfortunately. But at least from my perspective, I kind of look back at my time at university and wish that I did have a bike and I would just do something like Uber Eats or Deliveroo, because as well as earning money, I think it would have just been a fun way to explore the city and do exercise. I'm sure it wouldn't have been great all the time if it's pissing down with rain or something, but generally I think it is a great opportunity for students. So where is the best place to look and find all these great jobs while studying? So the first place is to look through your university. All universities promote jobs, whether they're the jobs actually within the university and the Students' Union, or if they're external jobs, they'll have job boards or Facebook groups or anything like that, you can actually go to your students' union and ask for kind of whatever, like job recommendation, that kind of thing. I did also just touch on Facebook groups there, and that is another great way of finding jobs. Just if you search London jobs or London student jobs on Facebook, you will find groups where people are recruiting for student jobs. Obviously, do be careful, use your common sense, what seems legit, what doesn't, what seems a bit dodgy. Just try and be sensible with that. But there is usually plenty of things to find there, and even on things like Facebook Marketplace. There are also plenty of job listing websites. I don't think they're always that amazing for this kind of job. Obviously, for jobs further down in your career, you'll be using websites like LinkedIn a lot. However, for this kind of level job, they're not super useful. Probably out of all of them, the one that's most useful is Indeed, as a lot of kind of entry level or student level jobs are advertised on there, so I would recommend looking on there. However, I'd probably recommend the other methods a bit more. The next way is a bit of an annoying one, and it's probably the kind of one that your parents tell you to do, and it's to just go around local businesses and hand in your CV and ask them if they have jobs. Sure, it can be a bit awkward, and a lot of companies do just do everything online or via email. However, if you are trying to get work at small independent local businesses, then that is going to be the main way you get it. Because those style of businesses are slightly old-fashioned quite often, then that way of getting a job still applies. However, I do definitely empathise with the fact that it can be a bit awkward or a bit boring having to go around to these jobs. I've done it before, I've not enjoyed it. However, it usually does get you a job in the end, so it is worth going through that pain. So before we end this video, I'm just going to do a few more general tips and bits of advice that I think will be useful. First is just something obvious, and that is the earlier you look, the better. So even if you haven't moved to London yet or moved to wherever you're going to be a student, then it is worth still looking ahead and trying to get a job lined up. However, on the reverse of that, it is never too late to get a job. Even if you're coming to the end of your first year and you haven't done any work throughout the whole year, it's still worth yourself getting registered on something like a hospitality agency and earning some extra money at the end of term. Just because you're a bit late to it doesn't mean there aren't going to be opportunities there. Also, say if you're coming to the end of your first year and you do a bit of work at the end of that year, then you might be able to continue the same job going into your second or final year. Another piece of advice I have is just to prioritise flexibility over money. So instead of going for that guaranteed 30-hour contract at £10–12 an hour, realise that some weeks you aren't going to be able to work that many hours. Sometimes you're going to have to revise a lot or do your coursework, or you'll want to go away, visit your family or something. And at that point, you'll be extremely thankful that you went for a more flexible job. You can also, with flexible jobs, work overtime. So maybe in a week you want to work 50 or 60 hours and earn a ton of money, and then have a great time the following week with all your money. Whatever you want to do, but I'd say prioritise flexibility at all times. Another thing is that you can also do more than one job. That does often make you more flexible. So for me, that was working at the Students' Union while also being registered to a hospitality agency. That meant that if I only had a certain amount of hours at the Students' Union and not much going on else in my life, I could add to that work by working some hospitality shifts and earning extra money. That worked very well for me, so I'd recommend that to other people. And I guess my final piece of advice would just be don't work too much. Make the most of living in London or just student life in general. Sure, it's great to have money, but you also want to have a fun lifestyle. So that's pretty much everything for this video. If you enjoyed it or found it useful, please do click the thumbs up button. If you want to see other videos from me, I make plenty of videos about London lifestyle, design, creativity, technology, all that fun stuff, then please do subscribe. Check out my social media accounts at jackjenkinsyt. And apart from that, hopefully I'll see you in the next one.